Alright, so we're going to be talking about the top 5 decks for right now. Please let me know down in the comments what the deck that you're playing is. I would love to know, especially right now in the middle of national season, and also what you think of this video and the ones that I list as the top 5 decks, because those are just the ones that I view the best ones right now. Also not taking any ban list into account, we don't know if that's happening. I'll mention the ban list briefly in connection to one of the best decks, Kashtira, so that's a spoiler there, but it's pretty obvious. But other than that, any of the decks that you decide to play right now out of these 5, and also arguably some of the other ones, could be great in this format. There's a lot of diversity going on, and all of these decks, of course, have some good things about them and also some weaknesses. So with that, for me not to talk too long in this intro, let's go ahead and get started with the first deck, which is going to be Kashtira, like I said already. So with Kashtira, the good thing about it is that it is very consistent, has a ton of space for non-engine, and it's just able to deal with the meta very easily. It's able to play a Rise Heart, which is great against some of the decks in this meta, and just overall has a ton of power. If the ban list decides to do something, like maybe banning Diablosis or hitting the consistency, things might change, but if they don't, which I think it's not going to happen, I think they are going to adjust it in some way. But if they wouldn't hit it, the deck would be an issue. It would just be annoying to deal with. Even though it's not consistently winning, which is saying something, a light slap on the wrist, I think, would be okay. But yeah, you can still play it as long as we don't have a list while it's still at full power because of all the good things I mentioned about it earlier. So there is that when it comes to Kashtira. But 2 decks that are also going to be a part of this meta are going to be Super Heavy Samurai and Pearly. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at Super Heavy Samurai first. It's this deck that just has... They decided to just print Wakaushi, make it be a really, really good card, and just overall just evolved from a bad deck to a deck that's able to be at the top levels. It has some downsides, but we won't start off on a negative side. Let's just talk about why the deck is good. So it's basically this strong combo deck that is able to go for insane boards and just can do a lot, you know, with Apollousa, Tyrion King Regulus, Savage if you want. There's also, of course, Baron. There's hand loops, there's iterations of the combo with an FTK, so you're able to do a ton of things. But not only is it doing this, it also doesn't have a huge engine, which is great because you can fit a ton of hand traps in. Not spells and trap cards though, which that is a downside of the deck. It can't play those, so it's inherently weak against floodgates and those types of things. Sometimes you will just not be able to deal with them because there's no back row removal cards you can play, which is not ideal. So if you want to play this deck, like I said, has some downsides, draw being another one of them. If you want to play it, there are still ways of mitigating this. Like Gamma is an amazing card in your deck because you're able to punish some hand traps severely. And just overall, you know, you have to play a ton to be able to learn how to play around certain things with your combos that change on the fly easily, and just to master the deck. And other than that, I think if you practice enough, this kind of deck would be for you if you're a combo player. So yeah, moving on to another deck that really does not play the same as Super Heavy Samurai. It's very, very different, but it is a deck that you also need to play a ton if you want to be good with it, because it doesn't seem very straightforward, would be the word maybe to use. The combos aren't just made for you. You kind of need to prepare the entire turn for yourself with cards you discard and ways you decide to go about making the combo work in case you get hit by a hand trap. It's very hard to play around one hand trap, but also around something else that they might have in this situation. You just still might lose. You won't always put up Noir. Your ideal hands would be with quick play spell cards, of course, which is not always going to happen. So just like the previous couple of decks, there are some downsides to them. But I think there's always ways of mitigating weaknesses and trying to play around as many things as possible. Also practicing enough to be able to be comfortable with the deck. So Pearly, if you do all of this, I think could be a really, really good choice moving forward. Another deck that is going to be very strong is Methmec. Methmec was one of those decks that was just kind of decent after Methmec Circular got printed. And again, I have to ask myself, why is the card as good as it is? Right after that, Tier became a thing, Bestios became a thing, and just Methmec just couldn't exist. So right now with Bestios sort of out of the meta, Methmec started to shine again. You need to keep in mind that people will side Bestios now because of you. They will always probably be ready for this Methmec matchup that's about to happen. You need to keep that in mind. And if you're able to play around Bestios and just respect Bestios enough, you can still play this deck, I think. So what does the deck actually do and why is it good? Is able to put up this board. It just makes it so you survive, and then you're able to OTK with the likes of Access Go Talker and Update Jammer, stuff like that. You put up Super Factorio, and there's other ways of going for the combos and the end boards. You can draw a ton of things with Heat Soul. There was versions with Appaloosa, with IP, just there's a ton of things for Mathmech. Just like I said, you can OTK easily. There's Firewall Defensor, which easily gets you to circular. And overall combos are one-card combos, so you can fit a ton of non-engine in, which if you're playing a kind of deck that can do this in this format, you're going to be good. That's a very, very good thing. And I guess with that, we can actually segue into the last deck, which is Branded. And again, I'm starting off with the weakness, but like Branded cannot fit a ton of non-engine in because it inherently has some issues where it needs to play a ton of engine for your plays to just go, for you to be able to play through Ash or around Ash in some ways, and you just have to have cards like Crossout and Nadir and just all these things for you to be able to run your deck perfectly, because it's not the most consistent deck out there. And then you sort of run out of space for non-engine, which is not a great thing, but you can still go over 44 and just, you can still play some non-engine, so it's not horrible. That was a really bad way of introducing Branded on this list, but I think it has a ton of potential moving forward. I talked about some of the weaknesses. We can move on to some of the good things about it, because the support for Branded is really good. Quem and Albion mainly are just incredible. Quem just gets you to Fallen of Albas or any card that mentions it in the graveyard, and then you can revive, you can do a ton of things with it. Get to Cartesia, get to Fallen of Albas as a disruption, get to Branded Fusion if you need to get to it. It did help. It also helped with consistency because you're able to summon it off of opening, so you can stop clogging with opening and Aluber and just have nothing to summon off of opening that would be of value. So that's cool. However, Branded still has some issues. If you get debarriered or ashed in a very, very good spot, you just have to pass. And that sucks. And it's just something that Brand is going to be dealing with, and with the consistency issues. So there's a couple downsides, but overall I think that if people can find their spot with Branded in this meta, it has national tops, it has potential, it has power, and if you're, like I said in the cases of some other decks, able to mitigate some of the weaknesses, I think the deck is going to be really, really good for you. You also need to practice with it a ton to be able to see all of the lines and how to play through things or around things and just establish the best board. So you need to practice with it, but it is very rewarding. There are honorable mentions on this list. Sprite is not bad. Naturia Runic is not bad. These decks didn't really change much. Just the format sort of shifted. And there are some downsides to those decks as well. So you can really decide for yourself, because it is a format where you can really catch people off guard with a very random deck. But if you still found some value with this video, I'm very happy. So yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. And if you enjoyed, please make sure to like the video. Like I said, it really helps the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments down below. Check out Card Market, Sleeve Chief, all the other social media. Also Patreon if you want. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.